So we just covered in detail about how the Israelis were exposed as having concentration camps. There's no other way to say that. They have concentration camps. They're doing torture systemically. This is on top of killing 92% innocent civilians in Gaza, expanding settlements in the West Bank, committing war crime after war crime, atrocity after atrocity. Now, at the same time, all that's coming out, there is a concerted effort to do a full court press of propaganda here in the U.S., where the allies of Israel, usually funded, paid for by AIPAC, just pretend like they don't see the atrocities and act like, hey man, let's just keep the focus on October 7th. Okay, but what if I told you there were multiple October 7ths since October 7th and it's the Palestinian civilians getting killed? Well, they don't care about that. They don't care about that. So here, Dr. Phil, listen to me, Dr. Phil is going to go interview Netanyahu and glaze his ass up. So he goes to Israel, and the speculation is that Dr. Phil wants to run for U.S. Senate in California as a Republican. And so this is his way of sort of getting involved in politics in a more direct way. But this is a totally fucking unhinged interview, bro. This is a totally unhinged interview. The fact that this got through, this is disgraceful. This is disgraceful. This is a guy who's supposed to be like a psychologist, right? Somebody who's an expert on human psychology and can break people down. And he's sitting across from modern day Adolf Hitler, and he starts giving him a hand job. All right, let's watch, then we'll break it down.
This war is between Israel, the Jewish homeland, and Hamas, a terrorist group that has taken over the territory known as the Gaza Strip.
Already wrong. Already wrong. If this is a war against Hamas, why have 92% of the dead been innocent civilians? 92% of the people Israel killed are innocent civilians. And he frames it in the biased, propagandistic, pro-Israel way. I'm sorry, I'll try to control myself with the pausing, but I can't make any promises.
Which Israel gave up in a goodwill effort for peace in 2005.
Oh my God. There's another Hasbara lie. The idea Israel gave up the settlements in Gaza in 2005 as a goodwill gesture. That is 100% wrong. What they did is, they got out of the settlements, but they moved to the border, and they militarized the border, and they made Gaza an open-air prison. And the whole purpose in doing that was to try to do divide and conquer and separate Hamas from the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, knowing, hey, if we keep them fractured and factionalized, they'll never be able to get their shit together to try to get a Palestinian state. That was the purpose. It wasn't, hey, we're good people, and we're just going to withdraw and give you Palestinian statehood. That didn't happen. God, Look, I don't know if he's a liar or just a fucking idiot, but maybe he's a bit of both. Jesus Christ.
Occupied by Palestinians, many of whom willingly harbor the terrorist or are at least sympathizers.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I can't help myself. Saying that many of the Palestinians, they're terrorist sympathizers. Have you seen the polls on what the Israelis think about what the IDF is doing? Destroying Gaza completely and killing 92% innocent civilians and bombing hospitals and schools and all sorts of civilian infrastructure, doing a total siege where they shut off food, fuel, and water and electricity to over 2 million people. Have you seen the polls? It was only 4% of Israelis that said, I think the IDF is going too far here. Only 4%. You want to talk about terrorist sympathizers?
Complicit in this? How do you tell the difference between Hamas and Palestinians in the Gaza Strip? Because Hamas doesn't wear a uniform. They hide among the civilians. They hide in schools. They hide in churches. They wear civilian clothes, which is a violation of the Geneva Convention. How do you...
This motherfucker wants to talk about the Geneva Conventions, bro. You want to talk about the Geneva Convention sitting across from Netanyahu.
Palestinians complicit in this, or are they just hiding among them? I know they're doing that, but are Palestinians, some, complicit in this?
You have actually both conditions, because we went into buildings, residential buildings, where these terrorists, hide, and where they shoot from. They go to hospitals, schools, residential areas. But when we went into these
See, this is him trying to say, it's okay for us to bomb the hospitals and the schools and the infrastructure, because the Hamas is there. Really? Well, then why have you killed 92% innocent civilians? But Hamas, bro, he brings it up. It's a sly way of trying to excuse the brazen war crimes.
Areas. We found tablets. And in the tablet, you have, you open the tablet and you see a picture of Adolf Hitler. And then in another building, you see a picture, in another apartment, you see text of Hitler's Mein Kampf, which is the sort of the work that itemized and laid the plan for the destruction of the 6 million Jews in the Holocaust.
So in other words, hey, look, even the Palestinian civilians, they love Adolf Hitler, so they're really just as guilty as Hamas. So if we kill all 2.3 million, hey, that's just us defending ourselves. That's what he's trying to say. This motherfucker has some nerve. This interview was coming out around the same time that even CNN reported, yo, the Israelis have concentration camps. And the images coming out of there look like they're straight out of Nazi Germany, bro. And he has some nerve to accuse others of being like Nazis. Now, by the way, if you actually believe they were finding Mein Kampf all over Gaza, I got a fucking bridge to sell you, bro. I got a bridge to sell you. This is right up there with, remember when the IDF pointed to a calendar on the wall and said, this is like their terrorist directions. Look, it says all the terrorism shit they're going to do. And it was literally just a calendar. You remember that? The Hezbollah is so... Remember when they released a computer-generated image of, like, under Al-Shifa where they said, there's a Hamas command and control center in there, bro. Then come to find out what? Wasn't no fucking command and control center. There was barely anything in there. There's like a handful of guns, and those shits were probably planted by the IDF. God damn it. All right, we're not done, though. We're not done. I got another one. They continue in this pathetic excuse for an interview.
When you look at the numbers around us, in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq, millions of people were killed, Muslims. Millions were uprooted from their homes. Where were the protests? Where were the demonstrations on U.S. campuses?
We're not funding those countries. We are arming and funding you as you commit atrocities. Why would U.S. students protest a government that we're not funding? And in fact, in many of the instances he brought up, we are actively opposed to those governments. They did like a low-key, sort of secret, undercover, attempted war against the Syrian government. The fuck are you talking about? We armed and funded jihadist militants in that fight against Bashar al-Assad. Remember al-Nusra Front, who later came out, they're a branch of al-Qaeda? Why would they, first of all, why would they protest something that was happening in fucking 2015, right? That's point number one. Point number two is, we're not arming and funding them. Of course, people are not going to protest them. And by the way, if you ask these people who are protesting are really fucking intelligent, and they have nuanced, intelligent thoughts about all this stuff.
And the answer is, it's nowhere, because it's not directed at what we do. It's directed at who we are.
Oh, yeah. So all the criticism is just because he's Jewish. This is so sick, bro. This is so sick. And this is how you get people to roll their eyes at claims of anti-Semitism from now until the end of time. When you claim, hey, the criticism I'm getting for murking babies and carpet bombing them, that's because you just hate Jews. Really cheapens the charge of anti-Semitism, doesn't it?
Anti-Semitic explosion that threatens all of civilization.
And why is that, in your opinion? It's anti-Semitic activity has gone up 360% in America since October 7th. And it was...
That's a bullshit statistic, a fake-ass statistic brought about by the ADL. You guys all know Jonathan Greenblatt has outed himself as a total fucking joke, a hardcore Zionist, a Netanyahu ball licker. That's a fake number. That's a fake number.
Already high before October 7th, and it's gone up 360%. Why?
Well, because I think it's a fusion of radical Islam and the ultra-anarchist left. It's fusing together.
Motherfucker, there is zero radical Islam on U.S. college campuses. What sort of a brazen lie is that? Are you even trying? Are you even trying? An ultra-anarchist left? Are you kidding me? There's plenty of right-wingers who agree with this. You've heard the argument from the paleo-conservatives. People like fucking Tucker Carlson. Hey, why are we funding Israel? We got plenty of stuff here at home that we need to take care of. Now, by the way, that argument isn't totally sincere from them. But the idea it's only anarchists in the U.S. who are against Israel. Turns out, it's a very popular position to say stop arming and funding the genocide.
Is that Israel has to be destroyed and America has to be destroyed. And that I think is something that you're right, is rejected by the mainstream Americans. By the way, the polls bear you out. I mean, I see this tracking poll by the Harvard-Harris tracking group, polling group, and they show this. And they show 80% of Americans, when you ask them, do you favor in this conflict Israel or Hamas, 80% say Israel, 20% say Hamas. It hasn't budged by a percent.
What kind of a biased... Of course, if you frame it Israel versus Hamas, Americans are going to pick Israel. But what if you frame it Israel versus Palestinians? Well, then it's a lot closer, isn't it? By the way, you want to talk about polls? What about those polls in favor of a ceasefire? What about the poll that we just discussed in the last segment where a plurality of Americans think your ass is committing a genocide? And it's over 60% that either say you are committing a genocide or maybe you're committing a genocide. You have the nerve to talk about polls? Listen how biased that framing is, bro. Israel versus Hamas? Of course. And by the way, 80-20, that's not something you should be bragging about. If it's Israel versus Hamas, it should be 98%, right? But it's not, because you've done tremendous damage to Israel. Jesus Christ. This is the worst propaganda I've ever seen in my life. Look, I'm going to pose it to you guys again. This is a question we're asking a lot lately. Are they liars or are they idiots? Right? Are they liars or are they idiots? Is there any way that Dr. Phil's this dumb? Just throwing softballs down the center of the plate for Netanyahu. Just licking his taint in front of the world. I've never seen anything this pathetic, bro. Again, this is in the midst of Israel absolutely obliterating Gaza, wiping it off the map, expanding settlements in the West Bank, putting their middle finger up to the UN, to international law, to the Geneva Convention and the Nuremberg tribunals. This is what they're doing. And this is the kind of disgusting-ass interview given by Dr. Phil, where he paints Netanyahu as the victim. He feeds into this bogus narrative of a rise in anti-Semitism. By the way, to the extent there is any rise in anti-Semitism at all, maybe it's because Netanyahu and Israel come out and say, we represent all Jews, and then they go and commit a genocide. So if people are putting two and two together, they're going to go, oh, well, if you're representing all Jews and the Jews are committing a genocide, how do I feel about them then? So to the extent anti-Semitism has gone up at all, you would be to blame. All right, there you have it. It doesn't get more depraved than this. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.